Welcome back. Last week we roasted a whole organic chicken and froze the bones and the wings. I've got the frozen bones and wings here in my crock pot. I actually had them in the refrigerator for several hours, kind of letting them thaw a little bit. We are going to use those bones and wings to make bone broth. I didn't want to overwhelm you first week, but I usually make bone broth in my slow cooker overnight after we have roasted chicken for dinner. Let's get started.
First step is to place all of the bones in the bottom of your slow cooker, the long bones, the breast bones, the intact chicken wings. I know my slow cooker will make about 5 quarts of bone broth, so I filled 5 quart jars with filtered water and I've set them beside my cooking station. Pour about 1 tablespoon of raw organic apple cider vinegar over the bones. The acidity of the vinegar breaks down the collagen in the bones, releasing it into the broth. Pour enough filtered water over the top of the bones and wings to completely submerge them. This is going to sit for 1 hour at room temperature. During this hour, I'm going to prepare the herbs and vegetables that I'm adding to my bone broth. When I buy vegetables and herbs to make broth, I have enough to make 5 or 6 batches. I divide the extra into batch-sized portions, wrap the portions in parchment paper, and then freeze them in a large Ziploc bag. This makes for easy overnight bone broth after dinner when I've served a bone-in meat. After the bones, water, and vinegar have sat at room temperature for 1 hour, I'm going to add carrots, green onions, celery with tops, garlic, ginger, dill, and cilantro. Some vegetables can make broth bitter, so if in doubt, Google which vegetables are good in broth. Then I'm going to add the remainder of the filtered water and put the lid on the slow cooker. You can cook the broth for 8 to 12 hours in your slow cooker or instant pot. I'm going to cook this batch for 8 hours on low setting. If you have an instant pot, you're going to want to use the slow cooker setting on medium heat. After the broth has cooled enough to handle safely, strain it through a fine mesh strainer and then pour it into your freezer safe containers. This is an easy to digest, lighter bone broth. There are a few extra steps in making a bone broth that is richer in color and flavor, and I'll do a video on this after I've roasted a pastured chicken. This broth will have reduced slightly during the cooking process, so I'm going to top off with some filtered water to equal the 5 quarts of water I started out with. I fill my quart jars to about 1 inch below the shoulder to allow for expansion of the liquid in the freezer. I'm going to put the lids on loosely and then I'll refrigerate the broth overnight and then transfer it to the freezer. Once the broth is completely frozen, then you can tighten down the lids. And here we have it, 20 cups of slow roasted nourishing bone broth to use as a base for meals throughout the week.